Welcome to the Biz2Biz podcast, your number one source for all business news.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of B2B Vault, the Biz2Biz podcast, sponsored by Nationwide Payment Systems and our new product, NPS One. Got on the new shirt, new hat. It's all about NPS One for 2026 and our smart invoicing product. Today, what I wanted to talk about was go over what were our top podcasts that we had in 2025. And we're doing posts on LinkedIn about it, Facebook, everywhere about the top 10 podcasts. And this is a podcast about the top 10 from B2B Vault, not in any order, but these were my favorite top 10 podcasts. First one up is Visa, B2B Acceptance and the Future of Payments. This was a really great podcast with Roger McNamara from Visa. He's the director of B2B. We talked about it from what advantages the businesses have by taking credit cards from their clients and how to do it and how it improves your cash flow, the time value of money, how that was all valuable to business owners by improving your cash flow in your business and operational efficiency, collecting money faster from your customers who want to pay you by credit card. A couple of other things that happened during the year on the podcast was we got recognized by Business Outstanders as one of the top payment technology podcasts, and that was really cool. So shout out to them for recognizing B2B Vault. Number 2 up, how to get funding for your business and build your business better with Scott Kelly from Black Dog. And Scott has a really, really cool opportunity for startup companies and that you can take advantage of, where you can present in front of investors who are investing money in startup businesses. It was a really great podcast. We had a lot of downloads on that. So I encourage everybody to check that one out. The next one that really excited me was Revolutionizing Payments with Payrock POS, NCR Counterpoint, and Alec Overly, who is our partner with NCR Counterpoint. He's our main contact that does the demos and everything. And it was super exciting to have him on the podcast. And we talked all about the enterprise level that NCR Counterpoint provides to businesses: unlimited inventory, multi-location operations, tiered pricing, inventory decision-making, e-commerce. There's so much that the system does. This is a system that really can be the operational backbone, whether you're a large retailer, you're doing retail and wholesale, you're a manufacturer, you're a distributor. This software can run your entire business. The next thing that was kind of fun, which I wanted to have fun on the podcast too, and I had on Joel Zeff, who's a comedian, stand-up comedian and speaker, comedy, culture, and choosing positivity in business. This was a really fun podcast. Told some jokes. It was kind of interesting. We both lived in Dallas around the same time, and he talked about how to lighten things up at work and how, break the not being so serious at work all the time, but have good culture in your office. Another thing was lessons from building sales teams, and this was really great with Kevin Gaither. And we had a really great conversation about sales, 1099 salespeople versus people on salary. It was a really interesting conversation. Which one should you choose? How does it work? And there's a really great podcast. And, we talked about accountability, leadership. And let me tell you, if you're in sales, you own a business, you have salespeople, you're a founder, you own an agency, whatever kind of business you're in, if there's sales involved, this is really a great conversation. The next podcast, which I think is going to be a huge thing in 2026 is compliance. Compliance with CBD peptides and nutraceuticals. We had on our guest Noah Fitzgerald from Credible with a Q. This was a really interesting discussion, especially since the CBD and hemp industry is under attack by the government. And we hope that that's going to shake itself out in 2026. But getting your merchant account approved and then using Q to do all of the compliance work, then you hand that over to me, like your representative. We give that to the underwriters, and that's going to help get your account approved a lot faster. It also helps the processor approve your account, keep an eye on your products, making sure that all your products are all compliant with FDA rules, FTC rules, whatever rules and regulations there are, because compliance is super important. We deal with compliance all the time in merchant processing, and there's no shortcut to compliance. Going to Stripe and Square and getting your account approved and then find out there's some sort of compliance issue is nothing but a nightmare. We nip the bud in that, and we put the compliance first, get your account approved, and this is what's going to keep your account open. Another podcast we had was Never Miss a Lead Again with 24/7 Customer Capture with Jessica Volker and her company. We talked all about how to capture inbound leads, improving response times, eliminating missed revenue, missed sales, missed phone calls. So, any kind of business that you're in, a lot of people talk about virtual assistants. We also did a podcast about that. This was, about a virtual phone system because missed calls equals missed money. It was a really great podcast, really informative. Another thing we talked about on the podcast, which I've talked about many times in various podcasts, but we had an expert come on, Danielle Hayden, Mastering Bookkeeping and Cash Flow. This was really, really good podcast. She talked all about how to make sure you're collecting money. You want to make bookkeeping easy for your business, and you also want to make sure you're making better decisions about how you handle your cash flow and you get paid. It kind of ties into what we talked about with Roger on the podcast, how B2B businesses can improve operational efficiency. I mean, she agreed with me on something I always tell people: somebody's buying something from you, get paid up front. Don't get paid later, because if you have a lot of accounts receivable, that's just going to cause you a lot of stress. So it was a great conversation. And if you need bookkeeping services, Danielle's company, definitely talk to them. Founders, growth, and real world marketing. This was a really interesting conversation with Lori Turner Wilson. She wrote a book. There's a blog post on our website about that. And it was a really, really great conversation about marketing, how to do marketing, B2C, B2B, what the differences are, how to deal with that. And she's a real expert in marketing. It was a really, really great conversation to talk to someone about marketing and what's going on with marketing, because marketing is always changing, especially with AI. Google, Facebook, Meta, everybody changing the rules. Where do you market? How do you market? And things like that. So that was a really good conversation. Another guest I had on twice. There was two guests this year, twice. Roger McNamara from Visa, and then I had Mark Wagner from Disputify. We talked about chargebacks. We talked about VAMP. And we talked about the future of payments. It was a really strong podcast. Talked about, VAMP, what are the rules, which are ever changing right now. One of the issues with VAMP that just came up is that while as a merchant, you could be under your VAMP ratio, the processor you're with or their acquiring bank, they could be over their ratio. And then that can also trigger fines going down to the merchants. So it's super important, especially January's coming. This will be the first merchant statement merchants will be getting that have possible VAMP fines on there. So if you get a VAMP fine, called Nationwide Payment Systems. Book an appointment, go to nationwidepaymentsystems.com and book an appointment with us, and we can dig in and help you figure out how to deal with that from a compliance standpoint and how to lower your VAMP ratio. So it was really, really great year 2025 for the podcast. We saw us get recognized by, we were mentioned in Forbes magazine. We were mentioned by Million Podcast as one of the top podcasts, and a few other websites recognized the podcast as one of the top payments, business, and technology podcasts in the United States. That was really cool, and there's more to come in 2026. And that was the wrap up from that. You can check out our blog post on our website. And if you like what you hear on the podcast, like us on Apple, leave a review, and follow us on YouTube, and connect with me on LinkedIn, and follow the podcast. I was also a guest on many podcasts this past year. I'm just going to give a quick rundown. The Chrisman Property Playbook, and we talked all about payments and the property management industry. It was a really interesting, great podcast, and thank you for Matthew for having me on. I was on the AI Flow podcast and talked all about how AI is reshaping payments, business, marketing. It was a really great podcast, and I thank them for having me on their podcast. I was on the Mutual Connections vodcast with Jacob Tuttle. That was a really great podcast. I know it's on YouTube, and there was quite a few clips that were floating around that he posted of things that we talked about, and it was a super podcast, and I appreciate him for having me on. I was on the Merchant Sales podcast with James Shepard a couple times. One of my favorite subjects to talk about was processor versus agnostic software and residual economics. And, one of the things that industry is changing all the time, and agnostic software doesn't stay agnostic. And then, that affects both people in the business like myself, and also affects business owners. When business owners buy a piece of software and they buy it from somebody and they think that it's agnostic, and then one day that company gets acquired, and next thing you know, you have to change over to new processing relationship. So it's something that people should really be aware of and understand the inner workings of how these things work when it comes to software. And so I appreciate James having me on twice. I was on the Expert Payments podcast from Global Legal Law Firm, and we talked all about payments on there and legal things that they deal with from their standpoint. I'm going to be a guest on there in January as well, and I appreciate all the guys over there, Chris Dryden, James Huber, and Jeremy Stock. Thank you guys. And I always get quoted all the time because I say, if you're not selling software, you're not going to be around in this business much longer, because that's one of the things that we talk about on the podcast a lot, is how software is really driving business owners' decisions on who they're processing with, because people are not buying processing first and software second. Now it's software first, processing is second. Sometimes processing is just a byproduct of the technology that you're buying. So technology is super, super important, not just to me, but also to business owners. And that's one of the main focuses of our company. That's why we have NPS One, smart invoicing platform, to help business owners get better organized. Another podcast I was on was the Unforget Yourself show with Mark and Katie. Talk to Mark, and the topic of the podcast was "Don't be the bank and let people owe you money." And that was we talked all about how businesses have a lot of accounts payable and things like that, and what's the difference between Stripe and working with Nationwide Payment Systems. So that was a really good podcast. And there's going to be a blog post about these podcasts too, and you can get all the links to these podcasts on the blog, and we'll post the link to the blog in the podcast notes. Revolutionizing Payments on the Financial Innovations podcast with Daniel Villani. And that was a really great podcast. We talked about fintech, innovation, embedded payments, and where the industry is headed and how that affects business owners. And also, I saw recently that Daniel released a book. So everybody check out Daniel's podcast, the Financial Innovations podcast. Unlock your business's true potential. This is where I talk to some the free cash flow agency, their accounting company, and we talked all about cash flow strategies, payment strategies, financial discipline for business owners. This is an ongoing theme with me. Get paid now, and that's the whole thing. So that's the wrap up for 2025. Thank you for making it a great 2025 for the B2B Vault. I thank you. The staff thanks you. Everybody in the office that helps the podcast roll. Sean, my video editor, Samantha, the graphic designer, Ria, who does the website, and Jara, who's my assistant. So thank you to them. Thank you to Rocky. He's sleeping right now and not barking, which is a good thing. So if you like the podcast, check us out on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And again, my name's Alan Kopelman, signing off today. Carpe diem. Everybody have a great day today. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Depends when you listen to the podcast, but we're looking forward to a great 2026. So wishing everybody a great 2026, success in business, success in life, and everybody be good. And we're looking forward to 2026. And if you want to check out MPS1, go to nationwidepaymentsystems.com and you can catch a demo on there and book an appointment for a much longer demo and see how it works and how it can help your business. And you can use one integrated platform for your entire business, collect invoices. You can send payment links. There's so many features. It would be a whole nother show. So everybody have a great day. Thank you for listening to B2B Vault. Carpe diem.